There is some breaking news out of Oneida County. Michael Fisher, the last correctional officer on trial for the murder of Robert Brooks, has taken a plea while the jury was in deliberation. Let's take a listen to part of the closing from Special Prosecutor Bob Fitzpatrick.
Does any of this seem reasonable? Does any of this seem as if it was done in good faith? Robert can't even stand up. Mr. Fisher is joking with the nurses, joking with Sergeant Nashaw. Did he take that nanosecond to say enough? Did he say, I'm going to turn on my body-worn camera? Did he consciously disregard that risk? Of course he did. Of course he did. For 7 minutes. 7 gut-churning, nauseating, disgusting minutes. He stood in that room close enough to touch him, and he did nothing. There he is at 21:30:07, enjoying a good laugh. That's how concerned Mr. Fisher was. Then when he was no longer watching the show at 21:37, he stops to take a breath mint. Was Robert Brooks' death foreseeable? Foreseeable to anybody with a brain, 2 eyes, a conscience, never mind a 20-year corrections officer. Is it foreseeable that that man might choke to death? That he might gag on his own vomit and his own blood? You tell me how you can look at that as a layperson that you are and not realize that that man is in danger of dying. You don't need x-ray vision. There are limitations on the use of force, all of which were disregarded here. There are rules on deadly physical force, all of which were violated here. Watch Mr. Farina, as he's administering the savage beating, look back with a look of concern on his face. But then he sees that it's Mr. Fisher, and he relaxes and goes back to do what he was doing. Looks right at Mr. Fisher, and then goes back to doing what he was doing. And there's Mr. Fisher's reaction to all of this at 21:30:20. There's what he thought of all of this.
4 jurors locked down deliberating to review evidence they've seen. They had one last chance to hear from the attorneys, one accusing Michael Fisher and one defending him. The jury already asking to watch again the footage of the beating from Fisher's view.
Every single time you pause to get a closer look, that's a reasonable doubt.
I don't want to be too harsh in criticizing my opponent's argument, but the fact that as jurors, if you decide to scrutinize evidence 2, 3, 4, 10 times, means that you're being a diligent juror.
But the defense argues that Fisher didn't know to do something based on the limited information he had.
I have a colleague who's been bit or struggling to gain control of his legs. The supervisor on scene has ordered one of my colleagues out to go and get leg items.
Because he's not as bad as the others doesn't mean he's not bad enough to be guilty.
Right now, the 4th day of Michael Fisher's trial comes to an end in Oneida County. He's the final former Marcy Correctional officer to be charged in connection with inmate Robert Brooks's death. Fisher is being tried for second-degree murder. Today, the final witnesses taking the stand and closing arguments were given. The jury was also provided instructions by the judge for their deliberations, which will continue tomorrow.
Defense also then reemphasized the death is due to the correctional officers who physically put their hands on Brooks.
Michael Fisher did not have a rewind button. He did not have the ability to enhance. He did not have the ability to pause. He did not have the ability to get a different perspective of what was happening in the room.
Said while Brooks is beaten, Fisher stands there. After showing multiple perspectives of body cam footage, a screen grab is shown of Fisher smiling while watching the beating.
Each blow, as Fisher stood there and watched, each blow administered to that helpless man, taking the strain on his heart to such a degree that his heart stopped. If they had stopped, if somebody had intervened, Robert Brooks would be alive today.
An abrupt ending today to former CO Michael Fisher's manslaughter trial, but not as a result of any jury verdict, a hung jury, or any action on the jury's part.
5 days into his manslaughter trial, former Marcy Corrections officer Michael Fisher decided to take a plea.
You entered this plea today voluntarily and of your own choice. Yes.
After testimony from multiple witnesses, opening statements and summations from both attorneys, and a few extremely unorthodox requests from the jury to speak personally with the judge, defendant Michael Fisher, charged with manslaughter in the death of Marcy Correctional Facility inmate Robert Brooks, decided to plead guilty to reckless endangerment.
They were deadlocked, so we didn't have all the votes in our favor. We had a lot. We didn't have all of them. And if there's a deadlock and that deadlock persists, there can be a mistrial, and we start all over again with a new trial.
The prosecution had their own motivation.
The jury was heading towards being deadlocked or favoring the defendant, so we opted to take the certainty of a plea and jail time.
What's unclear is when and if Fisher will serve the 6 months in the Oneida County Jail.
Part of the plea agreement is that we've reserved our right to appeal basically the prosecution's theory of criminal liability, even underlying the charge that he's appealed, as well as an agreement that his sentence will be stayed pending the outcome of that appeal.
The special prosecutor says this is why a clear-cut law is needed regarding this type of conduct.
There's got to be a statute that deals with willful avoidance of doing an unpleasant duty, namely standing up and doing what's right while a man is being beaten to death right in front of you. And I hope we build on it, and I hope that Robert Brooks isn't a footnote in somebody's archival history 10 years from now. I hope people remember his name, and I hope statutes are passed to do that, to remember him.
I'm glad that it's coming to a close. I believe that some justice was served. The atrocities that's taking place inside of these prisons is huge. As common folks, we don't realize it. We don't know because it's so well hid. Until they murdered my son and they brought forth the video.
So I think this sets a tremendous precedent, and I hope we build on it.
Last month, David Kingsley was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 25 years to life. 4 others were sentenced on manslaughter charges. 2 others were acquitted of murder.
We have this defendant who was pled admittedly to a lesser charge, but nevertheless for the same type of conduct. And most importantly, the amount of time done by those who did actual physical harm to Robert will be spending approximately 1 century in state prison.
Brooks's father, Robert Ricks, believed justice has been served, but more reform is still needed.
This situation being about my son has come and gone. It is so much bigger than the murder of my son.
What do you think, folks? Was this justice? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and we will see you all soon.